Welcome to the CODELIFE Podcast with me, Carl Beach, and my great mate, Nathan Blackerby.
Hello, mate.
So we're back and together after a rogue episode.
Yeah, a little rogue one.
It's my fault.
I didn't get any flack on that, actually.
No, miss me, mate. I was in Crete.
It looked like a nice time away, mate. That's what you
Mate, I kept taking photos of my feet on the like sun lounger with pterodactyl feet. But what I did discover was I can't sit still.
Didn't you find out about the history of Crete while you were there?
I was like everything. What sort of trees they were, what the insects were in the
Just
trees.
reading about it. Just sitting there
Walking around reading about everything and talking to people.
It's weird, that.
I can't sit still. Can't laugh at me.
Couldn't you just lay on a lilac on the pool, bob around?
No, I can't do it.
I don't understand.
I just feel like it's frivolous. No, it's not frivolous. I
When was
can't.
the last time you went away on holiday? You're talking years.
3.5 years.
Yeah. You had a week away.
I'd sit down for 10 minutes and go and get a cold beer and start reading up on the history of like the Greek Air Force.
Give me a
Stuff like
cold mythos.
Yeah. Mythos, large.
They make me very sleepy, the mythos.
I'm not sure I like it.
No.
I got one, you can get them from Lidl.
Mm.
I tried when I got back, it's not the same that of you in the sun. I've got this book
You called me.
on John Wesley. It's the Heroes of the Cross series, number 8. And it's a very, very old book that was given to, I've just ripped it. Presented to Irene Moore in May 1961, but Priestfield Methodist Church. I think I need a bit of surname. And someone gave it to me. I've got to be honest, I can't remember who. It may have been passed anonymously.
So if you're watching or listening,
Yes.
apologies for that.
Yeah. I do forget a lot of things like that. So Carl, thank you for all you are doing and have done for godly men. Keep your eyes on him. Matthew 28, 18 to 20. And I thought, interesting,
Yeah.
because actually, I might need a church bit, but I don't do a lot for godly men. Most of my time is spent with ungodly men. I'm trying to reach the ungodly.
Hang on. We had
Glitch in the matrix.
we had a little glitch in the matrix there.
That's all right. And anyway, it's quite a fascinating book, and I do want to just talk around a couple of bits. I mean, it's very, very old and very, very simply written. It's obviously written by a total fanboy, Stanley Soughton.
Oh, of John, like if that
Yeah,
was
a
John Wesley.
total fanboy. And I'm not going to go into all of Wesley's life, because literally you can go into Wikipedia and find out when he was born and when he died. And what he did do is found the Methodist movement. There's some very fascinating things within that, which I'm quite obsessed by at the moment. Quite obsessed by early Salvation Army and early Methodism. When they planted a church, they used to put in like a school, an orphanage, medical stuff. It was like massively holistic mission. I loved it. It wasn't just like a place to preach and get a guitar and over a projector. It was like it's properly rescue people. And he was started off as an Anglican lay reader, well, no, Anglican minister. But then he sort of founded the movement of Methodism, got booted out. They stopped him from preaching in Anglican churches.
Really?
Yeah. So he thought, I'll do my own thing. Sounds familiar.
Fair enough.
And so he founded the Methodist movement. I went to the Methodist Museum recently.
Is there one?
Yeah, man.
Where
Wesley, in a Wesley chapel next to his house in the city in
Wow.
London. There's a Methodist Museum underground,
That's cool.
guarded by quite an officious old man.
Really?
Yeah, he tried to stop me going in. I think I looked too heretical. Anyway, I did get in. And one of the first things I saw was the John Wesley Physic.
Mm.
He wrote a book for the cure of all ailments known to man.
Was he experienced in that film?
No, but it was the bestseller in its day. In fact, he wrote books that sold 20 million copies. 20 million copies.
That's quite a lot, then, isn't it?
Yeah, and he made 30 grand. Which
Wow.
actually, he was born in 1703.
That's a lot of
Something
money,
like that. That's a lot of rich, yeah. And he gave it all to the poor.
Wow.
And he averaged 500 sermons a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And 5,000 miles on a horse.
All
He rode,
original content as well.
yeah, and he rode 250,000 miles on a horse.
Mate, you. Thing is, just pause on that a minute. Like, that is a lot of effort.
It's a lot of effort.
And it is easy to get into a bit of a mindset. I remember when I was leading the church, sometimes responding to emails was hard work. This bloke's 500 sermons.
Yeah. And he basically, his study was his saddle.
Yeah.
He'd write them on the move. And he'd go somewhere and think, this looks like a godless place full of ungodly people, and just preach the gospel. Let me read this. Chapter 10, marked with an X. He became an apostle on horseback. When John Wesley took to preaching in the open air, soon after his heart warming, filled with the Holy Spirit, he little thought he was starting something which was to occupy him for a full 50 years, but so it was. John Wesley paid more turnpike tolls than any other man that rode the roads of England. He certainly was better known throughout the length and breadth of the land than anyone in his century, kings and queens included. I told you it's a fanboy.
Yeah.
How he gathered those huge crowds that hung breathless on his words and gathered them so quickly remains a mystery, and especially so when we remember that those days when there was no telephone and telegraph, and indeed the penny post had not been invented. The amazing energy of this preaching friar of the 18th century is realised when we hear that he preached over 40,000 sermons.
Wow.
An average of, 15 a week, and that he covered at least 250,000 miles on foot, on horseback, or in a post chaise, which later on in his life one of his friends had given him. He moved up and down and across England according to a fixed plan. Somebody has said that he knew the roads rough and smooth from London to Newcastle and from London to Bristol, just like a city postman knows his round.
Wow.
He lived like a soldier on active service, lightly equipped, ready to be in the saddle or on the march at a moment's notice. He was fit, fearless and resolute. He preached in any building, large or small, that was available, and where there was none to be had, he preached out of doors in any spot where folks could gather. He was always willing to preach to a congregation of one. If any other horseman overtook him, as he went ceaselessly up and down those rough roads 200 years ago, he basically preached the gospel to any met on the road. When he was riding alone, John Wesley rode with a slack rein so that he might read. That was how he kept up his wide studies and made his many sermons. His suit and cloak might be threadbare, but they were always tidy and neat. Anybody could see at a glance that he was a gentleman, although he was in the open air so much he had a complexion that a schoolgirl might envy. He wore his hair long and scorned the artificiality of a wig. People who knew him well left it on record that he had dark blue eyes, and as we should expect, a firm chin. His spare frame had the strength of steel. He could stand up to an amount of fatigue that would have killed most men. He would walk his 30 miles a day or ride 80 if need be, and at the end of his journey be as fresh as when he started.
Is this for real?
Yes, for real. 11, back to the book. He recruited a company of rough riders. This is me and you, mate. I just wanted to start with the fanboy stuff. It's great, isn't it?
I like that.
John Wesley had a very tidy mind. He loved things to be done decently and in order. Up to the time of the heartwarming, it was all for the services in the parish churches conducted according to the Anglican prayer book. And of course it was unthinkable that anyone should preach who was not duly ordained as a clergyman. When there came to John Wesley that great vision of the world as his parish, he soon saw that to undertake and overtake the great task of carrying the good news of the gospel right through the land, he would have to enlist some irregular forces as well as regular. Oh, nice, good, eh?
The irregular.
Yeah, that's what we are. That's right. That's what I like to think of. So he began to appoint carefully selected men as lay preachers. John Cennick, the first of his splendid band, led a life as devoted as John Wesley himself. He burnt out at the age of 37 and lies in the Moravian burial ground at Chelsea.
No.
Yeah. Thomas Maxwell Field, whose name is second on the list, actually started to preach before John Wesley gave him permission. Wesley hearing this journeyed in hot haste from Bristol to London to stop him, but found as his far-seeing mother told him that this young man clearly had a call from God to preach every bit as much as John Wesley himself. One by one, others were added to this corps of rough riders, and they proved exceedingly useful in many ways. They prepared the way for their great and tireless leader. They worked under him and with him, and they carried on when he moved to another centre. They were poorly paid, poorly clad, poorly equipped, poorly housed. This is a thick page, is this book? Oh, that's good. But they had the courage of heroes. We enjoyed great poverty and great peace, said one of them simply. They covered vast distances, mostly on horseback and sometimes on foot. We can the more readily understand this when we hear that in 1746 John Wesley divided the whole of England into 7 circuits. Peter Jacko, for instance, was appointed to the Manchester Circuit, which took in Cheshire, Lancashire, Derbyshire and Staffordshire.
Wow.
That's the Manchester Circuit.
Wow.
And part of Yorkshire. Think of what that involved in a way of tireless travel over the roughest of 18th century roads. Many a day he rode his horse 30 to 40 miles on the way, and at the end was thankful to have a little clean straw as his bed. These rough riders of John Wesley faced the bitterest persecution. Mayors and magistrates scolded them, sometimes imprisoned them as pestilent fellows. Often rowdy mobs incited by people who ought to have known better interfered with their open-air services and pelted them with stones, rotten apples and turnips and filth of every kind. The cudgels of Satan, as one man quaintly put it. My head was broken with a blow, wrote Thomas Lee, but I never found my soul more happy. It was this same indomitable soul who at the end of his days said triumphantly that if all the hardships of his life as one of John Wesley's travelling preachers were spread out before him, he would pray, Lord, if thou wilt give me strength, I will now begin again. Wow. No wonder these rough riders were invincible. Like John Wesley himself, they denounced in uncertain terms the evils of the day, smuggling, drunkenness and worldliness. They stood alone in marketplaces and village greens. They gave their message in just the same way as their great leader did, and with the same results. Their wives were just as heroic, desperately poor, despised by neighbours, continually on the move. Left alone to manage their large families, these pioneer preachers' wives deserve a place of honour all on their own in the thoughts of Methodism these 2 centuries after. John Wesley, this is interesting, finish this bit. John Wesley enlisted into his regiment of Rough Riders, bakers, stonemasons, miners, labourers, troops in the King's Army, as well as a few who had more education and a higher position in life. He had the rough guys, passionate, take a beating. These are the men who helped to establish the Methodism that we all so enjoy so happily and so comfortably today. We would do well to honour the fathers that begat us, and to stand at the salute as John Wesley and his regiment of tireless horsemen go riding by. Surely some who hear their story will want to catch their spirit and carry on their work, and so lay the foundations for bigger and better things still in the days to come. Boom.
Interesting that, mate.
Yes, mate. What do you make of that?
It's interesting how something pioneering, something visionary, something that is unafraid of the hardships soon becomes comfortable. Soon becomes about a Sunday, a service.
Is that why a movement becomes a monument?
Yeah.
And then ultimately a mausoleum?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. That for some reason, it seems to be rare people with a particular passion and move in their lives say, I'm up for this. I'm pioneering, I'll gather people around me and we'll do it. And then over time that gets passed on and on and on, and it becomes a...
And something happens. There's something unique in here about Wesley. I mean, he was obviously, I think, there's a bit OCD. And let me just quickly read this, if this is right. Because there's a background of discipline here. John Wesley had seen in his own home at Epworth, with its scanty resources, many claims that it pays all the time to have order and method in the affairs of life. So he's this highly, highly disciplined guy. He was fond of making rules for himself and for his own way of life, and was extraordinarily good at keeping them. He was simple in his habits, a small eater, vegetarian. In his study, not a book was out of place, no scrap of paper was ever loose on his desk. He planned out his journeys in the greatest care, a daily timetable, which in this less strenuous age leaves us gasping. He conducted a personal correspondence so wide and so regular that we wonder how he sustained it. He never used a typewriter, he wrote pamphlets, edited magazines, revised the whole library of worthwhile devotional books. This is all while he was on the road.
Yeah.
He balanced his accounts to a penny, never had a muddle with any of his various financial enterprises. He spent as little as possible on himself so that he might give as much as possible to others. Gain all you can, save all you can, give all you can, he said. He said, I'm always in haste, but I'm never in a hurry. I'm not like that. John Wesley, and this is interesting, Mike. John Wesley, though thoroughly self-controlled and infinitely patient, didn't suffer fools. He could tick off anyone who differed from him as neatly and as finely as any man who ever lived. Most of his followers and friends accepted all this readily enough, realising that John Wesley was usually right, and that when they did not agree with him, they were usually wrong. There were some who kicked over the traces and parted company of Wesley, but few of these thereby did much good for themselves or for other people. An autocrat, a benevolent autocrat, an autocrat for the glory of God, John Wesley, in the very exercise of power that came to him, exacted obedience from other people, just as he sought in the things great and small to render obedience to the great master he loved and served. He's a disciplined guy, and he's obviously quite ferocious. You know, he'd tell people off and call out sin, not playing stupid, or that attitude you're expressing poor. I like that.
But he seems to have been very structured, focused, strategy. His faith wasn't just bumbling along, was it?
No,
it
no.
was like,
Yeah,
this
the
is
plan.
what I want to achieve. It reminds me of the talents, you know, when Jesus that tells a story of the guys being given these amounts of coins, and one buries it, one invests it.
Yeah. So he was, you know, he had this like pioneering thing where he'd go into an area, break the ground, full of spirit, but it was organised, like Nehemiah, isn't it? And I like that. I like strategy, focused plans, you know, target end states. And some people have said to me before, Carl, you know, what about the Holy Spirit? No, the Holy Spirit can work through that. You know, you've got to be strategic if you're going to charge a hill, I think. So I like the stuff. I like the whole Wesley thing. But what particularly was gripped by me was these Rough Riders. That's what we need. A band of unschooled, ordinary men who are just on it. Don't have to have loads of degrees.
No.
Passionate about the Lord, passionate about Christ, passionate about salvation.
That's the thing. Bit of gospel urgency.
Happy to give up your home if necessary.
Yeah.
Happy to give up your car. You know, live simply.
So how do we do that? How do we encourage guys?
You just got to keep modelling. I think, you know. I mean, you've done it, and you sold everything up, gone to Brazil, come back, started again, pioneered, you know, led a little church with no glory attached to it. You know, came and worked with me up in the north. Yeah. You know, and God shines a light, doesn't he? And, you know, and I just try and keep pioneering and doing new things. And
Rough Riders, mate.
That's what we are. Rough Riders. Got to keep on the move. That's what I think. But prepared to count the cost.
That really comes across, doesn't it?
They were so gripped by the Lord, didn't they? They were so gripped by salvation.
Do you think we're too comfortable as Christians in the West?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I don't know, mate. I mean, I think yes, but for me personally, I mean, I'm a bit hooligan, mate. A bit of a tackle that. Sometimes a bit frustrating for people, but this thing keeps bubbling up in me, the urgency of the gospel. It never goes away. Ever.
It's a very interesting phrase, isn't it, for what you do for godly men?
Yeah, I don't actually, apart from lead a church and trying to inspire godly men to be, I do that.
But we're trying to align our lives to the ungodly men.
My target is I'm interested in discipleship insofar as it'll keep men on the straight and narrow, but I think the greatest tool for discipleship is to go into all the world and share Christ and get passionate about your mates going to hell. That's the greatest form of discipleship.
That was the spirit here with John Wesley, wasn't it?
If you really truly believe, I mean, I've had people debate with me over, is hell eternal, conscious torment, is it John Stott said annihilation, I don't think that's scriptural. I just think, like, whatever view you have, I mean, if you really believe hell is eternal conscious torment, fine. I'm not going to get into that debate here, but why are you not shouting out your window? Yeah. Why are you not running down the streets warning everyone that they're going to be tortured for billions of years?
Yeah, no matter what your concept of hell, that's the reality.
Yeah. Whatever it is, why are you? Why don't stand into? Don't debate with me over a pint what hell is.
Get out of there.
Tell everyone in this pub right now. And I think that's what's gripped you. That's what's gripped me. That's why we're relentless. Yeah. And so I think if you can get people passionate about their mates going to hell,
and that they've got a part in reaching
out
to
clean your life up, count the cost, pour money into the kingdom.
And how resourceful he was, riding a horse loose leash so that he could read and write and prepare.
That's good, isn't it? You used to do that in Brazil, didn't you?
I used to ride a horse.
Did you have a slack rein?
Yeah.
There you go, mate.
They hold both reins in one hand and then whip around.
Did you have a hat as well? Like
I had I did. Gaucho hat, yeah.
Did you have a cloak as well?
No, I didn't use
6-shooter?
I didn't use a cloak. I'd love that.
Yeah, I know, didn't it?
I'd go for a holster under the arm. Quick draw under the arm.
No, I'd be different.
I would go hip.
I just noticed there's a sombrero in this office. I would
TG6.
I would actually, if I was let's say we were cowboys, sorry, defending we were both cowboys, I'd be the guy who didn't carry a gun, but I had a couple of swords strapped crossways on my back.
The big Bowie knife.
No, like a couple of like
samurai?
Yeah, I'd be a samurai cowboy.
Is that thing?
Yeah, I'd just made up. I'd knock bullets out of the air. You'd be like, you don't need a gun, you don't need a gun. Look at him, little knives. Then, but you always die if you're that person in a spoof cowboy film. Yeah. You always get killed, but like you're unique. Yeah. I'd be a samurai cowboy.
Would you?
Yeah, like a kung fu ninja cowboy.
You wouldn't be the cowboy with the guns up the sleeves. You flip your hands forward and they pop
No, that's like a gambler, isn't it? No, he's gambling. Everyone thinks he's unarmed. He's just a bit of a Han Solo type thing. I've got a T-shirt that says "What would Han Solo do?" You know, everyone's got the "What would Jesus do?" bracelet. So I've got "What would Han Solo do?"
I like it.
You know what the answer is? Shoot first.
He would, wouldn't he?
Every time.
Favourite Western?
Unforgiven.
Yeah.
It can't be anything else.
Yeah.
What's that movie? We've got to watch that together next time we have a Beechy and Blackers night.
That'd be a good one. Unforgiven.
That's a movie. Anyway, don't forget the autumn conference.
Yes, autumn conference, 1st to the 3rd of November. Hotel, Eastwood Hall.
Yeah.
Hey, last year was amazing.
Yeah, and a lot of blokes have said they're definitely coming. But not yet booked in.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit stressful for us, if we're honest, because we have to pay
the money
at certain points.
But I've spoken to a couple of people who said, "Oh, we haven't done that yet." Yeah, but you know,
need to book in if you're coming. Booking, it's going to be good.
Gathering, not quite yet sold out, but it's heading that way, isn't it?
Well, next year, 10 years. It's a big one.
How many have got booked in now? 1,500?
Yeah, 14 and a half.
That's amazing.
I'm thinking about a limited edition hoodie for the 10th year anniversary. That'd be sweet, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We need something like that.
Or like tracksuit tops, like an Adidas tracksuit.
Yeah.
Hoodies are better, don't they?
Don't know.
And the other thing, we've got a little special book coming out.
We have. Yeah.
We're not talking about that yet.
Well, we can do.
We've rewritten the code.
We've sold 50 copies already. Just the last 2 days.
The movement's going to be minted. Yeah. No, it's all money goes back into mission. But
new code book.
We've not even publicised it yet.
No,
it's on pre-release on Amazon, but we really want you to get it from the CVM shop.
Yeah.
Because we've got to buy stock up. We're buying stock up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's going to be big. And next year, January 2020, we are launching a load of exclusive code-related stuff. Next year is a code year for us, and years after. Code events across the UK that we're at. Loads of exclusive content.
So for those of you listening, you think, what are they talking about? A code? Is it a barcode? It's a movement, not just a book, and it's centered around 12 game-changing statements for men, biblically focused and centre our lives on Christ and living it out. So it's a little book, leather-bound, faux leather, but it'll fit in your back pocket, in your suit pocket, embossed. And there's no marketing in it. We haven't put our names on the front. There's no endorsements on the back. It's all focused on Christ. Simple, just like us, Rough Riders.
Rough Riders.
Thanks for tuning in, boys.